All right, thanks for listening into this commerce session. Today, we're going to talk about call centers. And to do that, brought in a couple of my good friends and experts on this topic, Christine and Chris. I'm Greg. And to kick things off, we're going to dig into some of the data and the trends around call centers. Call centers are one of those things that have been around for a long time, and people are starting to maybe think beyond them. But we want to talk about what they look like today, and kind of the numbers and the best practices and what that means for your resort. So let's start off with a little bit of data. The first one is from a recent sample of North American resorts. Each of these are selling multiple products. And what we looked at was the volume, just generally. It's one of those numbers we've looked at a lot over the years. I'm sure you have as well. Just the volume of online bookings versus call center bookings. And overall, across all transactions for this sample of resorts, 20.1% of bookings were handled via the call center, which is a pretty big number still. Yeah, we're pushing toward, I guess pushing away from where it was 5-10 years ago, maybe 20, 40, 50%. But 20% of bookings is still a pretty good number in terms of how many are being booked via the call center. So the second thing is the value of bookings online versus the call center. So same sample, we looked at the data here, and call center bookings were 2.2 times larger in revenue versus online bookings. I mean, that's a pretty significant number. We'll dig into why that is a little bit later. And then the last thing is just the cart size. How likely is someone to call the call center versus how many items do they have in their cart? So when they only have one item in their cart, guests are about 15% of guests are likely to call a call center. When they have 5+ items in their cart, that gets up to almost 50% of people are going to call the call center. So obviously it skews toward more complex, larger itineraries. Overall, the number is still pretty high. And then you contrast that with a lot of sentiment out there in terms of people saying, we just want to sell all of our products online. But wouldn't that be great if we could get there? And it's a good question, right? Is that a goal that people should be working toward? So to dig into what this means, like I said, I've got Chris and Christine on to talk about this. Christine, let's start with just kind of the foundation here on call centers. Why should people think about having a call center in the first place? What are the main benefits? Christine, do you want to jump in first?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So I mainly, when I think about a call center, mostly, for myself, it's me wanting to have a discussion on maybe purchasing items that I just don't know are available. So sell me something I didn't know I want. Typically, online bookings, people are going shopping. They kind of have an idea of what they want, whether it's 1, 2 items. They're going there with an agenda in mind. Call center really provides that personalized service where if you have a good agent, they can go ahead and just anticipate what those guests' needs might be or those unknown wants. So the upsell potential in that personalized conversation is truly impactful.
Awesome. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this and I realized that sort of my thoughts around this have changed since I've actually become a parent. It was one of those things where typically when I traveled, I knew what I wanted, especially when we're talking about maybe in the ski in the winter. I'm an experienced skier. I knew what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. But now that I have a child, there's just so much that I don't know. And there's so much that I don't know, even with looking at websites about going to the resort. And, I think that straight up benefit of that call center is that I can talk to someone that's got some knowledge and I can just ask those questions about things that, yeah, maybe I can find them on the website, but do I know if that really works for my 4-year-old? I got no clue. I think it might. It's going to be sort of a new experience for me booking these vacations in the future. So really when it comes down to it for me, it's like, it's changed in the past few years, but the main benefit for me of that call center is to learn about things that are available that, I just don't know. And even though they might market their website really well and have those explanations, I'm spending money. I'm not quite sure whether I want to pull the trigger yet. So it's getting into this. It's just a lot different than I would have approached it maybe when I was younger.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think about one of the times that talking to a human helped me the most, and it was we were planning a trip to Sun Valley. Our kids were really small, and we were kind of tired of getting kind of run off the trail by mountain bikers in our local area. And so I just talked to someone. I said, "Are there any trails that are kind of quieter or hiking only?" And they instantly gave me 3 names, and we had a fabulous trip because of that recommendation. So it's such a simple, just a simple way to go directly to the benefit, not wandering through a website trying to find that solution. So let's actually jump into this human side a little bit more. When you guys think about that human aspect, what is it fundamentally, especially to your point, Christine, about upsells? What is it that a human is really able to do that software just can't?
Yeah. I think a lot of, people are naturally, especially agents playing that role, are good conversationalists. So whether they're just simply listening to the guests and their questions, and at the same time, they're kind of multitasking and anticipating what question they might ask or something they'll be able to kind of provide to that guest and what they're looking for an overall experience. Just like Chris said with kids, I'm kind of in the same boat there. And when you get on the phone, you actually get to talk to an expert. We all are subject matter experts in our own right, but when you call a call center agent, they're the ones who know the third party suppliers. They know what activities are around, what might be the best footwear for the hiking trail, and kind of give you a good sense of comfort, where you're kind of getting that personalized experience over the phone. Software can obviously do that as well. So it just might take a little more work on your side, just thumbing through some of the descriptions and reading everything, but talking to someone and having that conversation, just like you're sitting down for coffee, more or less, really kind of just adds that level of personalization and trust, knowing that what they're selling you, or maybe describing to you, just kind of gives you a level of comfort that you might not have booking online.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna relate it sort of to how I've used Google search, right? Software, right? I go into Google search, and I used to just do things for pretty basic terms, but I found myself as I've got into, whether I'm traveling, going to an area, trying to find trails, sort of your example that you use, Greg, with your kids and trying to find trails, things like that. My search has gotten more and more into like sentences, right? Like, what are the best trails for me and my 4-year-old to go travel on if we don't want to be, run over by mountain bikers? And I think that that's where obviously humans have a huge advantage over software. Is like, I don't ask those questions always right. Even in Google, which is one of the best search engines out there, right? I still don't hit the right terms, and it takes me a few times to really get into like the exact thing. And they even put suggestions in there. And so I think when it comes to the complexity of travel, and maybe some of the software that's out there, whether it's itinerary or suggestions that are out there and online, or even maybe just some AI chat software to try to get some additional info, it can't get to the nuances that I want in a vacation experience. And so that's where the human element comes in. I can ask those questions. They can then perceive and ask me a few leading questions, maybe to get me to think of something that I haven't even done before in that upsell arena. And so I think that the human aspect and the ease of use of talking to someone that's willing to sort of engage with me, make me feel comfortable, is always going to be better than sort of any of that software out there when you're trying to build that vacation experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys hit something that's really important that I want to kind of segue to with this next question, which is, this takes time, right? It takes someone with knowledge and some level of expertise in both the area, but also maybe the software that they're using to kind of piece together that itinerary. This ties into what we talked about earlier with some of the data. There's a clear increase in the size of itineraries when people are calling and booking through the call center. From your perspective, why is that happening? Why is it that, is it because the itineraries are larger, or is it because the human is helping them make a larger itinerary? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I'll jump in here. I definitely think when you're talking with, an agent, there is that opportunity to discuss, oh, well, for example, your whole family's going skiing, and maybe there's an individual who doesn't ski. And instantly the agent can have the opportunity to say, well, what are you going to do on the days the family's out skiing or taking lessons? And there's just an opportunity for conversation to happen where you can talk about the spa, you can talk about local hiking, whatever other on-site amenities or services in the area are available. But the agent definitely plays that role in maybe mentioning or upselling some additional items just based on the conversation at hand. So I think there's an increased opportunity to continue adding those items, or at least have that discussion, and maybe they're going to come back and book some more after that conversation. They can kind of digest that. So in my opinion, that's where a lot of those itinerary sizes are just more complex, just because there is that conversation element and suggestive selling there.
Absolutely. Chris?
Yeah, I think my mind sort of went to actually the human nature of wanting a deal too, right? And it's like, if I know I'm going to buy a bunch of things and I'm shopping online, chances are that there's not necessarily going to be deals available, right? Like a lot of software, online software out there doesn't necessarily have that capability. I can maybe throw extra things into the cart. My vacation, maybe there is a package, but it's not necessarily defined to what I want. So like calling in, um, and talking to someone, I can say, all right, great. I can understand the timing of my vacation. I can plan my vacation with someone for that complexity, but I can also sort of say, hey, I'm getting a lot of stuff. Where can I get a deal on this, right? Or are there any packages available? Something that might not necessarily, be seen in the online experience. So I think that there's always sort of that part of human nature of someone wanting to get a good deal, and it's hard to know that in the online experience sometimes. Whereas when I call in and I've got this crazy itinerary with all my family member stuff on it, and it can feel pretty rewarding in that shopping experience.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that is always so interesting to me in the data around people getting deals is that the guest or the person celebrates the deal, not realizing that they just spent more money than they were planning to spend in the first place, right? Oh, I got this great deal on this thing that I was never planning to buy at the store, and they don't think they just spent money on something that they weren't planning to buy. I think that's a perfect example of what you're talking about there, Chris. Let's round this out with one more question on this sort of analysis part of our conversation. We've talked about mostly the word call center, which is sort of a catch-all, but what other channels besides phones are you guys seeing people use to connect with their guests and add that human touch?
Yeah, I can jump in first here. I think that from personal experience, I am very willing to email or jump onto a chat when those are available. I'm not afraid to do email. There's a lot of times where I might have 5 minutes during my lunch break to do a little shopping for something, and I can't jump on a call right now. So something where I can engage with a chat or an email to try to get some more information and then follow up at a later time. Those are two areas that I definitely have seen in the travel space, and I think that those are super valuable.
Yeah, I would agree with Chris. Not very often, but handful of times I'll definitely jump on, a chat if it's available, just because it's right there and I still feel like I have that personalized service or connection. And the other thing for me too is almost texting to some degree. When you get those sort of like a teaser text, and when I get those, sometimes I'll go ahead and, click those instantly. I'm more of a responsive texter at times versus email. So when I see those, hey, shop now for 20% off, these packages for an upcoming holiday season, I'm pretty quick to click there and start looking for a deal. Just as, Chris mentioned early, being, hungry for those deals. That's a a good way for me to initiate that search.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm reminded of an interview I did with someone at a resort in Canada recently who talked about how they implemented live chat into their booking funnel. And, we've talked a little bit about balancing the fact that it takes a human, it takes time that you're paying someone hourly to do something versus software that can kind of do it automatically. But what they did is they only put the live chat and other options like that at a certain point in the booking funnel. Once they were starting to check out, or once they got to a point where they'd added a certain number of things to their cart. And that just kind of qualified the people who were going to be reaching out to them. It decreased the number of people that reached out as well so they could handle those, and ensured that when people did reach out, they were at a point where they really did need help, and every every minute spent by an agent helping someone would be worth it. So let's wrap this up with some advice from you guys. You've seen a lot. You've been on the phones before. You've worked with a lot of different resorts and hotels. What advice would you have to people as I think about running a call center, or ways to get their agents to do better at upselling other products, like you mentioned, Christine, or just in general, like conversations with their guests? What advice would you have for folks?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in here. So for me, I would say biggest conversation starters with guests is, just being really solid listener, trying to gauge the conversation. And, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming for agents as well, especially new hires, but having just really good practice of documentation and an easy way for those agents to navigate to everything that is available at their disposal to sell to guests just really helps with confidence and talking about a newer product or item that becomes available. But then you're also just, have that quick click to have that information available. And I think really at the end of the day, it's just being personable with your guests, really trying to be relatable and taking the time to make sure they have, every opportunity to discuss what they're looking for their upcoming experience. So just being able to be a good listener, have readily available information, and just being able to assist them and give that personalized service, I think goes quite a long way.
Chris, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like this one. So I reached out to one of our account managers here at Inntopia that actually, worked in a call center for a period of time, and I was just quizzing him. I was interested to know sort of how they do those conversations with guests, and he really came back with two key items that I really liked. First, get some of that information, like Christine mentioned, like upfront, right? Name, email, get some of that right there. And depending on the system that you might have, like if you're using Inntopia and Agentopia as a system, you can enter their name in there and pull up past history. And other systems out there might be able to do this as well. So then you can immediately see, okay, I see that they've booked. It can prompt me to other questions. But the other one that I really liked was just this very simple question of, hey, is it your first time visiting the valley, the mountain, the resort? Because that can give you so much information on how you want to then approach the rest of the conversation. The idea being that, no, I've never visited here before. You can then get into, okay, have you researched it? What activities are you interested in? Basic things like that. If they say, yes, I have visited, then you know that they might already have an idea of what they're interested in. So you can prompt them for those items. But also, as they're talking through, you can think of those maybe additional activities or items that people don't necessarily come and get a chance to do very often. Dog sledding or some snowmobile tour that, isn't the typical visitor type thing. So I think you can get so much information just from a really simple question. And it also, helps get them excited about their trip, them visiting, and you can educate them on that process.
I love that. That is such a fabulous flow. And I mean, having worked in a call center myself, I can absolutely echo that statement. Let's wrap this up here with one last question. I'm really curious to get your both of your thoughts on just where call centers are going. There's this feeling that The goal, like I mentioned at the beginning, people are feeling like, I want to get everything online. From your perspectives, will there always be a need for call centers? Or are they going to one day not exist? Will they be in a different form? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Chris.
Christine. Yeah, I think there's always, personally, I think there's always going to be a need for a call center, but I think that the conversation piece is potentially going to change. With Christine mentioning texting, we've got chat, email. I think that a lot more is potentially going to go that way, but there's still going to be need for that knowledge that you get from being, talking to a call center agent. We didn't even get into some of the stuff, but if you go to a resort that's got a bunch of third-party activities, that call center is really that knowledge base for that whole area, right? You train your agents not just on the lift tickets and rentals and lessons that you do, but you might also know all those other things like the dog sledding I mentioned or snowmobile tours, or if you're selling third-party lodging, I know all the little different lodging options that are available. And that's that place for that. And it's really hard, with us out there and less time to do things, more people working longer hours, things like that. I want to talk to someone and I want to be efficient with my time, and call centers are that place to have that. If I already have that knowledge, then yeah, online, no problem. I can go and do it. But if I don't have that knowledge, the most efficient use of my time is talking to someone via text, chat, or calling.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head there, Chris. I think there'll always be a need for call center, and just that human interaction, whether it's building confidence, upselling opportunities. But yeah, those call center agents are going to be sort of like your experience guide. And whether they've been ice climbing themselves, whether they've been to a sip and paint activity down the road, they've done it. They can answer any questions. They can describe it in great detail. So not only is there value from a call agent, perspective for that experience, but it benefits all your third-party, suppliers, and at the end of the day, the guest overall experience, which will probably leave them pretty satisfied and giving you a call back again.
Love that. And I agree. I feel like, there is probably an opportunity at this point to just embrace the idea of that human touch. From what you guys have said, it sounds like, if some resorts are going to push more and more toward just all online and force people down that path, yet there exists this big group of people that would love to just talk to someone that knows what they're doing and has the experience in the destination. I think that's an opportunity for some resorts to really double down on that and create that as create an opportunity out of that. So
yeah, I think, Greg, just, what you said, like, it's going to be really interesting to see in the next few years with, technology advancements, more people doing things online, whether certain places try to deprecate call centers, and whether that's going to really change that booking experience. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out in the future, but I think that value of that human interaction is invaluable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you take a destination that has two different resorts in it, and you've got this really complex need, and you've never been there before, and one lets you talk to a human and one doesn't, I mean, I think there's an opportunity there, the way things are going.
Yeah, and the booking doesn't necessarily have to take place through the call center at that point, right? Maybe we're still pushing people to online, but that knowledge base and maybe starting that booking out with the call center and completing it online, maybe that's the way that we go.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people too sometimes get discouraged with either long wait time or I'm ready now. I have 4 hours to try to make this happen. Maybe call centers kind of can move into the direction of scheduling reach outs. I know I want to talk to someone. I don't want to accidentally call on a peak volume day, but hey, here's my name and number and my availability. Can you give me a call back to discuss my upcoming visit or general interest? I can definitely see that playing into guest efficiency and time.